see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an
Hello
atheist.
and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, May 7th, 2023. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter 5. And as usual, we have our co-host, Wombat, on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
Hey, I'm going to text my friend and ask him if his counselor is actually
A Christian counselor.
That's a good point.
Yeah, good job. And welcome, Judd Pirate from West Canada. Must be early there.
It'd be 7 a.m.
Oh, good man. Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, Pastafarianism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And I should probably put Pastafarianism over there with the religion stuff.
Yeah.
If you think you're the only non-believer in your town, well, you're just not. Here in Knoxville, in the middle of the Bible Belt, we have a group of over 1,000 of us. We're the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, and we'll tell you more about it after the mid-show break, so be sure to stick around. Wombat, what's our topic today?
You can take something out of the atheist playbook, and what I want them to take is consistency. And we'll talk about that today. But before we get into that, let's have a nice little appetizer or pasta, led by our own Dread Pirate Higgs with our weekly invocation.
All right. Amidst the chaos of this world we roam, one deity stands tall above the rest. The flying spaghetti monster calls us home to a saucy and noodly paradise blessed. With meatballs tender and sauce divine, he nourishes our souls and warms our hearts. His noodly appendages forever entwine, guiding us through life's uncharted parts. O Pasta Lord, we kneel before thee and raise our forks in praise and prayer. May thy meatball blessings set us free, and thy noodles of mercy always be near. For thou art the saucy deity above, whose love and grace know no end. May we forever bask in thy noodly love, until our mortal coils we doth transcend. So let us sing of the flying spaghetti monster, and revel in the saucy noodly bliss he doth foster.
Amen. I had a flashback. There was one extra stanza to that sermon that I wasn't prepared for, and it reminded me when your preacher's on a roll and you're like, all right, and now it's going to be done. It's like, nope, there's 4 more lines, and you're like, okay, all of our eyes are open, guy. I think the disconnect.
We're already getting up off your knees, and
we've already unplugged. Hit send. Done that prayer already. We're good to go. It's like, and lo, behold, that God. It's like, we get it. Just hit send. God's happy. Guys, I'm so happy to hear from all of you guys. How about we do a quick just update, see how we've been, and then we can go straight into the topic. Larry, we're going to put you first. How you been?
Oh, I'm fine. Had my 73rd birthday yesterday.
What?
Yeah, happy birthday.
Let's go. Happy
Thanks.
birthday.
Thanks. Played computer games all day and had a lovely dinner and cake and stuff last night. So it was all good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Hey, you look good for 73.
Still working too.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I went out and played some disc golf with my friends yesterday. Let's see. I also had a funny incident happen where I locked myself out of my car at the disc golf park. Now, I had a situation where I'm locked out of my car. I'm in a place where there's no one around me, but I am a big fan of preventative maintenance. So I have a plan, even though my car and my phone's locked in my car. I do have my friends who are with me, and I said, hey, can you drive me to my home? And I realized I left my car keys, my home keys in my car too. I said, actually, can you take me to Lowe's? I did have my wallet on me. They drove me to Lowe's. I picked up a ladder. Why did I pick up a ladder? Because I leave my window open for my cat at my place, and all I needed was a ladder to be able to get back to my home. Or I had strategically placed a spare key available in my home. I just needed access to it. So I already had this planned out. I'm not stressed out. We go to Lowe's, we pick it up, we go back home, we filled out the ladder. I climb up the ladder, go into my window, get my spare key, come back down the ladder because I couldn't lock my front door. And then I went back to the park. unlocked my car keys, had access to all my keys, played around disc golf, went back to Lowe's in my own car, dropped off the ladder, had a funny story to tell them at Lowe's, got a full refund. Overall, good day. But I'm saying, it's easy. If I was religious minded, I could have blamed that on karma. I could have said there was 14 different things. But I can say that it's nice to have a problem solving mindset and realize that things can go wrong and have some.
Sure.
And I would recommend, have spare keys. They are so important. That's my best preventive measure. All right, Dred, what's up? How you been?
Not too bad. I had sent along to you guys the article that was recently written by Jeremy Hainsworth with regard to my ongoing plight with now the fourth government institution, the Ombudsperson's Office.
Yeah, very encouraging.
But having read thoroughly the court case to which these people have referred, I discovered that actually that court case is in my favor, and because they've all these agencies have subsumed the authority to determine a person's religiosity,
whether it's valid or not.
Definitely outside of their purview, outside of their mandate.
Yeah.
And I have them on that. And if I have to hire a lawyer to sue them, I will.
Good. And
sue them for a goodly amount. Make it worth your time.
Yeah. Many noodles will be bought.
Sue them if it was possible to like sue not for money but for time, and say like, if I win this lawsuit, you have to have a pot of noodles with me at like this convention somewhere. And one, that would show like how much goodwill you had behind it, and two, it'd force people to do something silly and realize, oh, this is what we've been fighting against for millions and millions of man hours. Like, what have we been doing? What a great lesson for everybody about how dumb they were.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, that sounds like it's a really good follow through to our topic today, because it's about people not representing the things that they stand for. And when I see people subsuming justice and integrity and objective fairness for everyone, yet they are being deliberately penalizing marginalized groups for no reason other than they think they have the authority to do so, it sort of strikes me as, hey, you are being somewhat of a hypocrite. And if I want to take a nicer word for it, I can say you are not following the rules that you are telling and forcing on other people. You are not living by your own code. And I say you can learn something from the atheist code, of which there isn't, but there is a single position in atheism, which is I don't believe in a God. And that is a very consistent stance, if you would want to call it, that I feel like religious people can learn from that consistency as well. And I want to throw up a couple of stories. I'd love to hear from everyone else. But one of the stories I have is at our potluck at our job, we have a lot of people from India. A lot of people from India are Hindu. And I know who in our group are Hindu and who aren't. So it's not everyone that's Indian. But they will sometimes bring in over tacos, and there'll be steak tacos that people can make. And I see the Hindus reaching out for the meat and putting them in their tacos and eating them. I'm like, oh, hold on, don't do that. And I've seen them do it with chili before too. I'd be like, don't do that. There's beef in there. And they'll look at me and it's like, oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And they'll just keep eating. It's like, hey, hell, isn't like beef a whole holy animal that you shouldn't be eating? It's like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's like, why is it my job as an atheist to remind you about your own code of conduct for your particular religion? And the same thing, I have family that are Muslim, and we had Ramadan recently, and I'll reach out to them and say, hey, happy Ramadan. And they'll send me back pictures of the food that they're eating in the countries that they're living in. And they'll be eating the food in the pictures. And I'm like, is that recent? Cause like or this is like during like the week of Ramadan where you're supposed to be fasting. I'll be like, aren't you, like, I'm doing the math in my head. Like, you shouldn't be eating right now. It's like, it's fine. You can eat during fasting on Ramadan, because you're only allowed to eat you're not allowed to eat when the sun is up, but once the sun is down, you can eat. And I did the math. I'm like, wait a second, isn't it 3 o'clock where you're at right now? Like, where's the spirit?
Yeah, but it's cloudy.
It's true. You get that. And I feel like with Christianity, there's a lot of examples where even me as a religious person, I can't tell you how many times my mom has asked for like a Christmas present, even though she's a Jehovah's Witness, or she'll indirectly be angry at you if you don't give her like a call on Christmas Day or Easter, or give her a birthday gift even though she's not supposed to have that, where she'll ask for information on blood transfusions if she's had issues with, or inquiries about surgeries that she'll have, even though she's on. Oh, sorry. Testing. Why is it up to me to know those rules, basically? And so I would love to hear if you had similar examples of people who are religious not following the religious code, and you as an atheist being aware of that. And like, Dredd, I know you have the perfect example because it's what you're going through in courts right now.
Your voice.
Yeah, your voice is a little high. It's
Go
like
ahead and talk for me while I fix the microphone. Go ahead and talk.
That sounded really weird.
yeah, it's like you put it on fast forward or something. Just your voice is fast forward.
We don't have to dominate the entire show on it. Just
You're like
catch up for me. Be a good co-host. Catch up for me, Larry.
Yeah, go ahead, Dredd.
Well, I'm sorry, I kind of missed the question, but I did want to make a point because you said that a lot of people from India are Hindus, but there's also a lot of Sikhs. And those two religions are quite different. So I wonder if that is making a distinction without a difference, but I just thought I'd add that.
What about Sikhs?
Well, so Ty had said that there was a lot of a recent celebration he went to. There was a lot of Hindus. And people often don't distinguish the difference between, or can't distinguish the difference between a Sikh and a Hindu.
Well, usually,
and certainly Hindus would not. Sikhs do not like to be called Hindus.
Yeah,
right. We know the difference, and they're the ones who educated us. And yeah, there's just a lack of when they're out of an area where there's a lot of other Hindus, they don't follow their own tenets as strictly. Right. Because no one's watching as closely or willing to correct.
Well, and it's like people who consider themselves Jews, but only in a cultural sense, not in a religious sense.
Right.
So they'll eat a bacon cheeseburger on a Saturday or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, I know it's the same thing all around. Most people are, well, especially in the Bible, right? Because there's ways to read the Bible. Like, for instance, an eye for an eye. When they want to exact revenge, it's an eye for an eye because the Bible says so. And if they want to show compassion, they say turn the other cheek. So depending on it's a situational, a situational thing where they can just accept and take on the parts of the Bible that suit the situation as opposed to being consistent, and in that way they are consistent to their Bible.
Right. It's like it almost gives them a pass for their own hypocrisy, right?
Yeah, you can pick anything out of the Bible to support your current mindset.
Yeah,
right. It sort of acts like a Rorschach test. There's actually a really funny skit that I wanted to share with you guys called Bible Man, and if you weren't familiar with it, it's a guy. There used to be a show called Bible Man that was like on a Christian television public broadcast station, sort of public, but it was actually, for-profitly funded Christian propaganda on television, basically. And it was a guy who would dress up in a superhero costume, go to places where there are criminals doing bad things, and then preach at them in his costume, and the people would stop doing bad things. So like robbers would try to rob a bank and be like, give me all your money. And then Bible Man will kick down a door and be like, John 3:14, thou shalt not spend thy brother's money. And the guys would be like, oh, Bible Man, you're blowing my mind. I should stop doing this. And they put their guns away and they become teachers and wrestlers for local coaches for schools and stuff like that. And you'd be like, oh, okay, good job, Bible Man. But the skit that I saw this time was a parody of that. Because it was basically guys robbing a bank. Bible Man kicks down the door, and the robbers are like, "It's Bible Man!" And Bible Man just starts shooting them, and like they all die. And like Bible Man's like, Galatians 4:16, I can do whatever I want to do. And it's like he's quoting like actual things from the Bible, but he's just like, I get to do this now. And I'm just like, whoa, this guy's kind of mental. He's doing whatever he wants because he's just pulling verses from the Bible to justify any action that he wants.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it does.
I thought that was so apropos. It was so great. But yeah, Wizards with Hats is the guy who made that comedy skit. Larry, would love to get some feedback on you. Is there anything that you've noticed as an atheist where Christians aren't following the rules that they're supposed to, or any other religious groups?
Well, love thy neighbor. I mean, that's supposed to be the thing, love your neighbor as your enemy. But this Christian right movement nowadays, that dominionism, where they're taking over the country, love is the last thing on their mind. It's all about control and
division
and religion, right? Religious control of the instruments of power of the government.
Right.
And it doesn't benefit people as like love would.
Sure. And, on a more superficial level, like I've definitely seen a lot of Christians who enjoy wearing fabrics of mixed cloths.
Mhm.
So like polyester cotton blends, shellfish, wearing color purples. Like there's a lot of weird commandments in the Bible, not just the main 10, but obviously hundreds and hundreds that people don't realize that they're breaking if they're a Christian, that they're breaking every day.
613 commandments, and like Deuteronomy and Leviticus alone.
Right. And not only that, but like I have a friend who is a Seventh-day Adventist and does not work on, what is it, Saturday? That's his religious day.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I will say, hey, you want to play disc golf on Saturday? It's like, I can't, I prefer to just rest on Saturday. It's like, that's totally fine, because I respect your religious beliefs. I'll go I'll go play with some other friends, but thank you very much. And if you're free on Sunday, let's hang out on Sunday. And then Saturday, he'll come back or he'll send me pictures of things that he did on Saturday where he's hanging out with friends, making like, what's up, Dred?
Well, I was just going to say, you said that you respect his religious beliefs.
Right.
Now, do you respect his right to believe what he wishes, or do you respect his
those beliefs?
I hear what you're saying. I guess, it's a euphemistic statement of, I'm not gonna tear you apart, even though you know that I believe a different thing. That's it. It's a euphemistic statement. That's it.
Well, yeah, but
I want to read
this
too much into the exact verbatim of it.
But this is, I think, a point that many people of religious faith take issue with, is that they think you should respect their beliefs,
right? Not
their right to believe, and that's the distinction.
Mm-hmm. Some beliefs are just silly.
That I tend to point out with people. Right. Is I don't have to respect. And actually, that recent video I made about ad hominem versus challenging beliefs, it's an important distinction to make. I think that I'll defend someone's right to believe what they want to my own death, but I will not say that I have to respect their beliefs.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. At least even in this context, I didn't find the belief particularly harmful to take a day off on a religious context. So I guess in some literal aspect, I do respect the idea of taking a day off. So like, if that was also adopted by a religious ideal, it's still an idea that I respect, taking like a day off to just like reprieve, because he does like a really monotonous task at our job, and it's good for him to take a break. But the main thing was, he didn't want to play disc golf on Saturday because it's part of his, like, I can't work on Saturday, but yet he will still drive to a place, buy model paint things for figurines for like this tabletop like war thing, and he'll like paint soldiers that have like skulls and angels and demons on them, and like throw dirt on them, and like these like giant monsters he'll like portray that are from a demonic dimension. Warhammer is what it's called. And he's like, in my head, it's like, we could have thrown discs and that would have been at least more acceptable in like the religious context, compared to like, oh, I got to go paint demons instead. I got to make them look as realistic as possible and have them chewing apart human soldiers with blood coming down their face and stuff like that. I'm like, it's not technically working, Ty. I'm not technically, but you're going somewhere and you're driving and you're buying something, you're coming back home and you're toiling on something that's clearly demonic in a lot of other people's eyes. But like, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that either. I just have an issue with the consistency, or the adherence to a tenet that you claim to believe in, that's controlling your life, and yet how you actually operate in society and why these two things are desperately apart from each other.
Yeah, and it's interesting also, Ty, that people will select the things that they'll abide by, right?
That are most comfortable to
It
them.
won't work on Saturday, but they'll eat the cheeseburger, you know what I mean? Or the bacon cheeseburger,
Right.
like, it's being very selective about what it is that appeals to you to do, without, like you say, without any kind of consistencies.
Right. I feel also like the thing that doesn't bother me isn't so much the hypocrisy. I kind of feel like that's inherent to human nature. There's times where I feel like a hypocrite. It bothers me when it is both my bane as an atheist to be pigeonholed as like this outlier of well-meaning society, but also the person who's in the best advantageous position to objectively see when people are going outside of their script. And why isn't our perspective on that the one that Christians go to first to figure out if they're actually being adherent to their beliefs? Like, if you're a Christian and you want to know if you're being a good Christian, talk to an atheist, because they'll tell you. They'll most likely know the rules better. They'll have read the book in a more objective state, and they can say the rules that you're breaking or not breaking. If you go to another Christian, they'll be like, "Oh, you're fantastic. You just got to pray. You got to do this, and give me 10% of your paycheck." If you talk to an atheist, they'll be like, "Well, if you really care, here are the rules that you're breaking." Bam, 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 bam. They'll be like, "Oh, I got a lot of extra work to do." It's like, yeah, and you want to have a conversation about why you believe that? Because I'd be happy to have that with you too. That's just my points.
Well, most atheists have gone through religion, know all about it, come out the other side with a lot of knowledge about the religion. Now, some atheists, very few atheists, were born into a secular home and never learned about religion except what they wanted to study, just to be aware. But so many of us have gone through and got the T-shirt, been there, done that.
And there's also the idea of, like, even just being friends with an atheist, couldn't that be against a religious code? Now, that's something I'd like to think about. So if you're a Christian and you have an atheist friend, isn't that inherently, or a Pastafarian friend, or a friend that's just of a heathen, someone who does not believe in your one true God? Can you truly be friends with that person in terms of what you're allowed to do in the context of your religion? Dredd, are you familiar with any stances like that in Christianity or even Pastafarianism?
Well, there's no problem in Pastafarians being friendly to anybody of any kind of faith whatsoever. Of course, as long as they're open to eating pasta, then we get along famously. No issue there.
Okay, good. But I do feel like at least it's practiced that there's otherism, tribalism, and issues with Christians being friends with, or at least very close friends with, like, people.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you think about even in the Muslim, where Islam, where you're supposed to kill apostates, right? Yep. So, yeah.
Yeah, what's funny is I just typed in Google, I said, can a Christian be friends with an atheist? You get two totally separate answers. One of them says, no, Christians should never be friends with non-believer. After all, Jesus was only friends with good religious people. And I think it was a kind of a smart alecky answer on that one. But then it says, my friend says she doesn't believe in God. Can I share the gospel with her? Which is a totally different thing.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, right. Because you want to hang out with them to proselytize to them. So it's for your religion, not for them or for you.
Right. You want to hang out with people who you couldn't turn into Christians so you can get extra Jesus points. But the thing is, would you be willing to just accept the fact that you have a friend that doesn't believe in a God and still be friends with them? I feel like that even influences marriages as well. Like, I've had, and we could talk about this in the second half of the show, but if you marry someone who's out of your religion, is there in your back of your mind the intention of you converting them after the marriage fact? I certainly know that there are relationships that I'm aware of that try to do that, but there's also a lot of influence within a religion to marry within the same religion. And so Muslims tend to only marry other Muslims. Christians tend to marry people who they establish as other Christians. And I find, like, you never see a lot of mix between the two. Even like Jewish, like even Jewish Christian, it's like there's not as much mixture. And I'm wondering, is there is there explicitly any sort of religious basis on that? And for the people who,
Well, yeah. Christianity says thou shalt not be unevenly yoked. In other words, if you're, don't yoke yourself to somebody who doesn't have a Christian belief, is what they're saying.
wow,
But they're talking about marriage.
Yeah, so it's a shame because there's a lot of benefits that can come from having a multicultural background, and for the people who are mixed in their beliefs and do start a relationship, whether it's best friends all the way to marriage, I find like a lot of people get a benefit out of that, even if the religion explicitly says not to, or that's a bad thing. I feel like from an atheist point of view, I don't have a problem with it. That's just more communication that needs to happen. Dredd, any final thoughts before?
No.
Cool. Larry?
Yeah. Go ahead and take a break. This is the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's take just a moment to talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville. ASK was founded in 2002. We're in our 21st year now and have over 1,000 members. We have weekly in-person meetings every Tuesday evening at Knoxville's Old City at Barley's Taproom and Pizzeria. Look for us at the high top tables, or if it's pretty weather, outside on the deck. We also have a Tuesday evening, first Tuesday of each month, Ask Zoom meeting. If you don't live in Knoxville, you can join us there. If you'd like to join us, email us for details at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or letschatse@gmail.com. You can find us online on Facebook. Go to meetup.com and look for Knoxville Atheist, or go to our website, knoxvilleatheist.org. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and do a search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one, start one.
Start one.
That's right. Wombat, where do you want to pick up?
Random aside. Culturally, we can be born into an environment where there's just social things that we accept to be true, and we don't really think about them a lot. And it can come from what language we speak. Like, hey, it's not a big surprise you speak English if your parents speak English. And likewise, it shouldn't be a big surprise that you like the music that is particularly in your geographically locked location. So like if you're in Tennessee, you might have a nice appetite for country music. And it shouldn't be a surprise if your parents are both Christian or Muslim that you are at least exposed to that as well. The shocking thing is, how many times do we get an opportunity to examine the beliefs that we have from an objective point of view and understand, not within the context of how we were raised or the culture that we were in, how we were indoctrinated into particular belief sets. And what I find is the benefit to know that is when you get that multicultural experience. So I talked before in the first half that multiculturalism is really useful. If you have a parent that's a Muslim and another one that's a Christian, you as a kid have a really interesting opportunity to actually see these two completely different belief sets and be like, well, like, how does this actually mix? And can they both be true? And like, what's going on here? And why aren't you guys angry at each other? Oh, you guys both love each other? Okay, well then why this doesn't have to be a contentious issue. Different people can believe different things and they can still like each other as people. That's a very good, healthy mindset to have, and maybe influence what they actually believe is true too. And I recently always thought that, for example, myself, that you had to drink milk as one of the basic food groups. It was like a dairy section in the food pyramid, and you had to have milk. It wasn't until I took biochemistry in graduate school that I realized adult humans are not supposed to drink the milk of cows into their adulthood. That was just a lobby by the dairy industry to make sure people are supposed to drink it. And things like lactose, the sugar that's in milk, when you're lactose intolerant, you're normal. That's normal. You shouldn't be eating lactose. And it's not a disease. It's just the fact that you can only become lactose intolerant when you give yourself enough time to be normal by stop drinking milk, because you're not supposed to be digesting that sugar in the first place. And that blew my mind. And I thought, wow, just because I lived in America, where milk is a very prominent resource and a good commodity for selling, that I realized how ingrained my understanding of my reality was based on my upbringing. And if it could affect me on milk, imagine how much it could affect me on just how I treat other people, how I think about other things, and the religions that I am exposed to. So, Dred, I'm glad that you're doing your Pastafarian exposure. I'm glad it's being publicized. And I'm glad that you are making an effort to let people know, hey, I exist. It's a thing. Deal with it, so that people can have exposure to that culture. Because otherwise, you're going to have the exact same thing happening to you from these boards that have no authority over you to the layman conversations. And likewise, Larry, you're doing a great job letting people know you're an atheist. You do a lot of trolling on Facebook. That's
troll.
something we can
do not troll. I don't troll.
He wakes up in the morning, he's like, what memes can I make today? I've seen the stuff you post. I've seen the stuff you post, but it's good that there's like all these different approaches to letting people know that there's different cultures out there.
Just represent.
That's the best way to get it. I just represent. Larry Rhodes, quotation. All right. So the thing that I wanted to bring up was, last week I brought up a friend of mine who said he recently came out as agnostic and atheist to his wife. His wife did the same thing too. And they both sort of knew where they both were, but didn't want to make it explicitly clear. And when he confessed, she did too. And now, for the first time, they're both on this new level of honesty where they both know they don't believe in a God. They haven't told their kids yet even. And they're just realizing, wow, what is this new world that we're in? Let me reach out to my one atheist friend who helped me understand what I needed to do on my own to get out of my own dogma. And he reached out to me. We played some disc golf. We talked again this weekend. He was the friend who helped me get the ladder, by the way. The idea that we talked about in the car was personal responsibility. And one of the things he was greatly overwhelmed with is, ever since I said I was agnostic or atheist or whatever, he's still getting used to the terms. I realized like my work started getting a lot harder. Like I'm getting a lot more responsibilities. My relationships with my wife are on a completely different dynamic, and just things in my life just seem more higher stakes, because I used to be able to pray and believe in
turn
that
things
God
over
had a
to
plan for me.
Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm realizing that like everything's on me, and it's filling me up with a lot of uncertainty. And so I said to that, well, I had two concerns. I was worried that those uncertainties and fears and responsibility and that weight would make him go back into religion. But he's like, I'm at the point where I couldn't be reconvinced that God exists again. So like, that is a bad state to be in when you're an atheist, because it's like you let go of the safety line because there's nothing at the other end of the safety line, but you also don't have the fulfillment of comfort that you get from religion either. Isn't that a terrible position to be in when you realize, yeah, it is all on you, and you never really had a chance to exercise that muscle of dealing with that personal weight, and you don't have anything else, because I don't have an answer for you. It's just an uncertainty that you're going to have to deal with.
But it always was. He needs to realize it always was on him. He just never thought of it, never took time to evaluate that.
Good point, Larry. Yeah, it's not like you got a new load. It was always there. You're just looking at it now.
Right.
Like
you were just passing on the responsibility of it, just letting things happen, but allowing some supernatural friend to theoretically take care of it. That's like I wrote an article about Jesus takes the wheel, how that's a really bad philosophy, because what you're really doing is ignoring your responsibility and kicking the can down the road and letting just nature take its course, because you don't know what it's going to do, but you're accepting no responsibility for it.
Right. And I can say this too. It's very similar to like he's pulling a load. He's pulling a load of responsibilities behind him. And instead of him giving credit for the load that he's dragging forward, he's saying, well, God's pulling this for me. It's like, you're clearly doing it. And then when we realized that there wasn't a God doing that for him, and it's just him, he's like, whoa, look at all this stuff behind me. It's like, yeah, but you've been pulling it the whole time.
That's right.
So like, think about how old you are. Think about all the things you accomplished. You did all of that. You're responsible for all that. So it's not like you'd never had the strength to do it. You're just aware that you're doing it now. And while it's scary to have this as a lucid moment, It's a strength that you've always had, and you can continue to do it. You continue to pile more stuff on it. And so what do you think, Dred?
Well, I was going to say, it reminds me of that footprints litany, where, there's two sets of footprints in the sand, and then it goes to one. And the guy says, "Why, God, why did you leave me?" And he says, "I didn't leave you. That was when I was carrying you." And it's like, and that does seem to reflect the mentality that you're talking about here.
But the opposite, right? Because it's not. The idea would be like
totally, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a delusion, right?
Right.
The whole time you've been, held up by somebody that doesn't exist,
right?
And then, in the absence of that, you feel that the burden is heavier. Well, it's not. It's always been you.
While there is that footsteps in the ocean analogy, there's also like every sports movie of the 90s analogy where it's like the coach comes in, there's a team that's just not doing well. And he's like, "Listen, guys, I found a magical orange, and all you have to do is touch this orange and you'll get all the slam dunks, you'll get all the touchdowns." And the kids all touched it. It's like, "Trevor, I believe in you. You just got to work harder on your homework and touch this orange." And Trevor does harder on his homework and he touches the orange and he makes a slam dunk. He's like, "Billy, you just need to confess to that girl and say you love her and touch this orange and you'll get the touchdown." He's like, he asked Jennifer out on a date. She says yes, and he touches the orange and he makes a touchdown. He's just like, the whole team's like, "Great." And then next thing you know, one day the coach drops the orange and he steps on it and it smashes on the floor. And they're like, "No, the magical orange." And the coach is like, "It wasn't the orange, kids. It was you the whole time." And the kids are like, "Oh," and then they win the game. It's the exact same thing. It's like leaving behind your Christianity is a lot like realizing that magical rabbit's foot, or that lucky charm, or that magical rock that you had, or even that magical orange never had an influence in your life, and that all the things that you're doing was because of you taking accountability, responsibility, and action on your life. That is a good thing, but it's also a disconcerting thing. And here's my question to you both. Christianity provides a lot of comfort because you don't have to think about all the responsibility that you have. Atheism has none of that. It's literally just one position on one question. What can we do as an atheist to help people who are coming out of their religious mindset and leaving behind all that comfort? What can we do to help them be more comfortable, or let them understand what the nature of uncertainty actually is? Dred, I'll throw it up to you first. What do you think? Oh, Larry, I saw you open up your mouth too late. There was a little bit of lag. Do you want to go ahead? Go ahead, Larry.
Let Gary go ahead. Or let
Well, I was just going to recommend that there are some awfully good, fine people at recoveryfromreligion.org who are answering these questions every day, and that they might start there by going to recoveryfromreligion.org. Nice. But the other thing is, just realize that, like you were saying, it's all on you anyway. I mean, it's always been. There is no magical answer, and where you got to at this point is because of what you have done, not what your invisible friend has done, no matter what you might think prior to this. Dred?
I was just going to say, I've got this guy trolling my channel now by the name of Wesley Curry II.
You didn't have to give him credit, but okay.
He's no, I just wanted to point it out just to make sure that he got named. His thing is Jesus is going to rid existence of your type persons. So I said, awesome, thanks for playing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, first prove that he's real, then we can talk about what he's going to do.
Right. There's an order of operations before any. So why do we say that? Because if someone says, well, let's talk about how God made the universe, it's like, first prove that a God exists, then we can talk about it. Because you don't get a special seat at the table, because the guy who's saying it's pixie magic and pixie magic made the universe, he doesn't get a seat at the table. And the guy who's saying my lucky horseshoe created the universe, he doesn't get a seat at the table, because they haven't proved that there's magic or pixies yet, right? So therefore, the guy who's saying God did it has a burden of evidence to prove before he can sit down at the table. Meanwhile, we can prove science exists. That's the whole concept of science. It's like demonstrating that these things happen. So We can model it. We can demonstrate that it's testable. And now you get a seat at the table and we can talk about it. There are other seats, but until they prove their case, they can't come at the table. That's basically my idea. Dred, what do you think?
Well, I was going to say, I've been, one of the podcasts I listen to is Sean M. Carroll. He's a physicist and philosopher at Johns Hopkins University. And he had this great YouTube show that he talks about whether God is a good explanation for the universe.
Okay.
And he showed a picture of the Hubble deep field, where you see, thousands and thousands of galaxies.
Yes.
And he said that is one good reason why God is not a good explanation, because if God created the universe, why waste all that space just for us? You know what I mean? It was I thought it was a great point that he made.
For that one cool picture.
Yeah.
Or here's Christian mindset. You ever have you ever go to like as a kid, you ever had gone to like a fair or like a grocery store? Let's do a grocery store, and you want a toy, and you're like, "Mommy, I want a toy." It's like, you're not getting that toy. None of these other kids are asking for toys. Do you see all these other kids perfectly behaved? And so like when God made this universe, and he's like, why are you guys messing up all these things? Why do you have all this sin? Look at all these other universes. There's no sin out there. Why can't you be like your older brothers and younger brothers out there? Like, they're doing a good job. Why do you have so many problems here? One planet. Get your stuff together. He's just showing us good examples. That's all. That's what the whole deep field is all about.
Perfect.
Anyway, I did get a really good feedback from my friend, though. He said he's reaching out, instead of to prayer and his pastors, he's going to actually go to a marriage counselor to help with his new dynamic with his wife, because I told him, hey, it's actually a good thing that you're getting that help, because you have people invested in helping you and you're reaching out to them rather than like the spiritual aids that you were relying on. But also, you and your wife have a new level of honesty that you've never dealt with before, because you were dealing with so much misinformation beforehand. And now you guys really get a chance to understand each other on this new non-spiritual level. And that could be a really good thing. And you guys both seem like you're working towards it. He's like, yeah, we're not arguing. It's weird talking and knowing how to engage with each other on this new level. And so it'd be good to have like a third party in there. Larry, you did make a mention though, that you want to make sure that the counselor was not religious. And I think that's a fair point, because you could have like a religious therapist who's like, you know what you guys need? The Bible.
Yeah. What's funny is when my first marriage ended, I felt like I needed some counseling, and my wife recommended a counselor. Now, this was the girl who made me an atheist in college. She later slid back into religion, and she sent me to a Christian counselor, and that did not work for more than like 10 minutes.
Right.
And so I quit that, and then I got a good secular counselor, and it helped a lot. I recommend it.
Good. Yeah. So yeah, there's good.
I was going to point out that along with your friend, my wife and I are of different faiths as well. She's a Mennonite. That's how she was raised. She not as strong, like she doesn't go to church or anything like that, but she does believe that her parents are in heaven, and that when she dies, she'll go to that place with them. Yeah, we managed to make it work so far. It's been, for me, I've been a pastafarian for about 7 years now, I guess. And I think it's getting easier for her. When I go to have pastats, which is our monthly pasta feast, I can tell she gets kind of out of sorts about it.
Sure.
Because she doesn't buy into it at all. But when the event is over, she's back to normal. And actually, she was on this She went to San Diego on a cruise, a turnaround cruise, and she actually brought me back a pirate hat.
Well, did
So
she?
I thought, well, that's actually pretty amazing. So there you go. There's two people of different faiths that get along. So
I have a question for you. How long were you guys married?
we have been together for 23 years now, I think.
Okay. So you guys, all right, got it. Okay. Were you a
Like
Mennonite
we're still together.
before that? Were you a Mennonite when you guys met?
No,
You personally?
no. I was like I was a bit of a waffling Christian, I guess.
Got it.
Yeah, becoming a non-Christian took several years.
Mm,
Like,
wow.
like many people, the more I read,
Right.
the more I just couldn't.
The more you examined your beliefs.
Yeah, the more I examined the beliefs, the more I couldn't reconcile them with reality. So
Sure. And in my head, so strong atheism has a weird connotation in that it's typically given to people who are agnostically atheist, which in my head is an untenable position. It takes an extra step further. But in my head, strong atheism is typically people who are atheists for, and this isn't the general consensus of what this word is, but strong atheism is people who have done enough work to understand that it is about a standard of evidence and have such a good founding of why they're an atheist that they don't necessarily waffle on position, yet they're open-minded and they understand the terminologies, they understand the idea that it is purely just you haven't met the standard of the evidence for the claim that you've made. And as soon as you do, I'll believe it. But until then, you don't. And I can't, it's not my job to try to figure out what the standard of evidence is for an overpowerful God. That should be something that God is capable of. But it's also not my prerogative to tell that God what to do. And it's up to that God to decide whether or not, if it's in their powers to convince me or not otherwise. Other than that, I'm happy being a good person. I'm going to figure that on my own. Like, I kind of consider that as like a really strong atheist position, to the point where I don't have to worry about checking in with them a week from now or a month from now and being like, hey, are you still an atheist? Like, no, I'm a Baptist now. I tried it out. And I was like, I was an atheist because I liked the letter A and I wanted to get the shirt, but then I decided I didn't like black that much. So I was like, screw this. I didn't have to pay the fees or the dues. Like, what fees or dues? It was
What
free.
dues?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't like feeling uncomfortable.
yeah, I remember you had some comments or questions by somebody that said or was it a guest that we had?
Yeah.
Who said he was an atheist and then became a Christian.
Correct.
It's like, well, you couldn't have become an atheist and then converted back to Christianity, because the atheism couldn't have been genuine, because there's no evidence to support Christianity. So, an atheist doesn't have sufficient evidence to believe in a God or
I hear
that
you.
God.
I hear you. I believe that you could believe something like a God, and that makes you not an atheist or like a believer, a theist, right? And then for whatever reason, you can have a moment of clarity where you understand you don't have a good basis for your belief, and you become an atheist because you don't believe in that God or any God claim anymore. And then for whatever reason, you don't like the feel on the other side of that fence. And so you begin to drop your standard of evidence so that you can get rid of all this uncertainty and fall back into a belief system. And when you drop your standard of evidence low enough to the point where it's not as meaningful, you can easily believe in a God again. And once you believe in that God again, guess what? You're no longer an atheist. So like, I understand the transition. What do you think, Larry?
Well, yeah, a lot of people, a lot of Christians will say that I've never been a Christian because I wasn't a real Christian if I could ever give up my belief in God. And this is the other side of the fence, when actually what you can do is you can be a Christian, then you can be an atheist, but then you may have come up with a further newer definition of God that you can live with and that you think might actually exist. You can come back into a belief of a different kind of God or a different level of God or a God that has a different job, as it were. So beliefs change all the time. I'm not really, overly concerned when people say they used to be. I will always ask them, what changed your mind to go back? I will always ask them that. And then I will, if I can, point out the flaws of that kind of thinking.
Right. And for me, it's that plus, okay, I'm fine with you being a Christian. Are you still asking questions? And if they're not asking questions, that's the problem. And so it speaks to a degree of closed-mindedness that I've always worried about when you fall into a big religion, because I'm an atheist and I still ask questions about atheism. I'm still willing to dismiss atheism, leave it on the side of a curb if I had a better option. And I'm constantly thinking about processes and complaining about science. Man, let me tell you something. I got fish oil right here in my hand. I've gone through like this 4-day tirade in my mind on like, what's the scientific benefits of fish oil? It doesn't seem like it has anything of value in it. And I'm reading up stuff, just scientific claims. And clearly there's like good stuff in fish oil, but not all fish oil has that good stuff. And there's like lipids that are absolutely useful, but if they're not at a high enough concentration in fish oil, then you shouldn't be taking that fish oil. So it's not so much the fish oil that's important. It's these two long chain lipids that are useful that your body needs and needs to get from its diet. But you can get them from walnuts, flax seeds, you can get them from eating actual fish. You don't need the fish oil, but this does provide a convenient way to eat it. And so you really have to just make sure that there's no mercury and that it has those two ingredients. And I'm reading these things like, well, then how do they do their mercury testing then? Like, I'm constantly thinking about science all the time. I think it's good. But when you're a Christian, you're like, well, the Bible said this, and that's all. That's it. My pastor said that, and that's it. I'm just like, why aren't you asking questions? You have this. It's your body. It's your chance.
Right.
Go.
And what gets me
is there anything good in snake oil? Do they have good lipids?
maybe there's some good omega-3s in there somewhere.
Yeah, but no, they'll always come back. If they used to be an atheist, they never come back to just deism. They always come back to like Christianity or Mormonism or whatever. And I always ask, I can understand how you could maybe go to deism since we don't have an answer to what created the universe, what fine-tuned the universe and all the first cause and all that stuff. But how do they make the leap from a deistic God to a whole religion when there's nothing more to support it than an old book? And there are thousands of old books, old holy books in the world. Why choose that one?
I guess that's what I was trying to get at, is that a Christian who is maybe having a crisis of faith doesn't become an atheist. It's a Christian having a crisis of faith. And that, when they go back to it, it's just reinvigorated by the same, because there's no additional evidence to add to it. I guess that's kind of what I was getting at was.
Yeah, a Christian with a crisis of faith becomes a strong
for someone to call themselves an atheist, is
Yeah.
again, in some cases, they're just having a crisis of faith, whether that lasts a week or a year or 2 years, whatever.
And that uncomfortable feeling might get them to accept a new claim against, for the Christianity or the religion that they hadn't considered before, and let them fall back into it.
Let's talk about that uncomfortable feeling, because I remember I consider it a parable, but it is just a story, a fairy tale of the emperor's new clothes, where there's an emperor who he got convinced by a couple of snake oil salesmen that there's this invisible thread, and they made an entire wardrobe out of it and sold it to this king. He wears it out in public and he's essentially naked. He feels a draft and he's like, oh, but that's just the quality of this fiber. In my mind, that is that degree of uncertainty, the idea of like, hey, there's this nagging sensation that I might be wrong about stuff, or I might need to be doubtful of things. And it's up to you to recognize it or not. And you can ignore it and say, no, I'm covered in clothes. This is good. I have all the confidence in the world. I'm 100% certain that I am wearing clothes in public right now. Or you could recognize what that draft is and be like, oh, maybe I'm not wearing clothes. Maybe how I treat people isn't good to resolve itself by just praying in my own quarters. Maybe I should go out, and if I injure or harm someone or say something particularly offensive to someone I care about, and I was being unreasonable, I can make amends personally with that person, and not in my own private space with my own relationship with my personal God. I feel like that degree of uncertainty is sort of like a spark of empathy, and if anything, quality ignorance that lets you know that you could get on the path to learning about stuff in a meaningful way. Dredd, you love reading about physics and understanding like latest scientific articles. You have to do that from a position of, I don't understand, or I don't understand the conclusions yet until I read about them and then understand the conclusions that are being made. You don't go in with the impression of, I know this field of science and I'm just here to verify my own conclusions. Like, you have to understand that there's a point of ignorance. You have to enter into a lot of different complex ideas. What do you think, Larry? Oh, you're on mute, my buddy.
I wanted you to go back to that phrase that I'd never heard two words put together before like that. Quality ignorance?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So the idea of quality ignorance is man, why'd you ask me this with 4 minutes left in the show? We could have made a whole show topic about that. How about that? We'll
save it.
Make it next week. We'll save it for next week.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
Dredd,
I guess we should start closing out.
Yeah. Dredd, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, yeah, sure. My channel is Mind Pirate on YouTube, MINDPYRATE.
Nice.
I've actually been getting, some more joiners on, like more people on my channel. So I appreciate everyone that joins, even the nut jobs like Wesley Curry.
Wow.
And thanks, Data's Trading Room, for inspiring me to give him a timeout.
Nice. Data's, you're always
check me out. I live stream the show at 7 a.m. Sunday mornings when I'm able.
Nice. Thank you for all our ardent commenters. We'll go over your comments in next week's episode too. We'll do quality ignorance in next week's show. You can also find our shows on Let's Chat or Let's Chat SE. At Gmail is my contact if you want to send me long form comments. We appreciate those as well. But also I have the YouTube channel, which is just at Let's Chat. Larry, all you.
Sorry for the noise out. There's a truck outside idling or something. But anyway, my contact can be found at digitalfreethought.com. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject. You can find my book, Atheism, What's It All About, on Amazon. And my YouTube channel handle is at Doubter5. Remember, everybody's going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life. We'll see you next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on WOZO Radio. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.